So we come to the next phase where we select the behavior change techniques and design the entire promotion campaign. So we go to our catalog of behavior change techniques. So this is also based on research studies which behavior change techniques influence which which behavioral factors. So let's see. We found out that health knowledge is a relevant difference between the users and the non-users of a latrine. So we should do something about to increase the health knowledge of the non-users. So we present facts. Then we found that there's something about feelings. So this catalog is formulated in a more general way, and then for the project, of course, one has to go into more detail and more depth. What kind of feeling, that in this case was feeling trapped, should be targeted. So we want to stress and address the feelings in a positive way, that people do not feel trapped anymore. The others was a social factor. It's also very common that you find that social factors are very important. So here it was about the credibility and the importance of the hygienist, so the person that actually promotes the latrine use. So this is can also be targeted, and Mikael will later tell you how this was done in this project. And the last one is remembering. As I said, it appears very often to be an important factor that people forget to do behavior. So we can use memory aids and like little stickers and environmental prompts. So do a certain kind of installation that people are prompted more easily to use a hand washing device or use a latrine. One comment on things that are being used usually in projects that we call communication channels. And I want to make just a distinction between the behavior change techniques. So what you see is what we call communication channels, and the behavior change techniques that I previously presented are actually the content. So let's say a community meeting itself is not in our sense classified as a behavior change technique, but it could be a communication channel through which feelings, for example, can be addressed, or through which a social norm can be elicited. Or advertising, for example, a poster, the behavior change technique would be what is written on that poster. So just to make a little distinction, and sometimes it's also difficult for project partners to make this difference, but it's very important. So what you have to do then is to match communication channels that are commonly used in your country and match them with the behavior change techniques. So, Mikael, how did you do that?
Yeah. Basically, we discussed with the team, and first thing was to do a small report on the findings and the main meaningful differences between doers and non-doers. And as we did the first step with all stakeholders, we did the same here. And so we included also the hygiene facilitators, for example, the people who were day-to-day with the beneficiaries. And the main risk that is commonly there is that people, they see the findings and then they go back in the old way of doing things, meaning that they do what they've always been doing in hygiene facilitation, for example, trying to convince people. And the RANAS methodology has the advantage to focus really on what is meaningful and to leave the rest apart. So we developed together with RANAS a behavior change strategy and we discussed it with them. And one thing, as the project already have a team and some activities, we tried to link the current activities to the message, to the behavior change techniques that we wanted to share with beneficiaries. And that was an efficient way of using, it's not an additional for a project, it's not necessarily an additional budget, but you replace activities that were planned anyway. So we tried to make it efficient this way. And then the idea was to make a plan for the strategy and trying to integrate it in the project cycle. I mentioned earlier about the rainy season. That's the main thing you want to avoid when you want to meet people, because they are not at home. So if you do household visits, for example, you need to be sure that they are there. So the project took a little bit, we are a little bit late, so it's ongoing at the moment, but I can show you at least how we connected the behavior change techniques, the communication channels, and the plan. So that's the next slide. So you see on the left the different DCTs that were found. So Andrea took a few examples. Here I have more. But basically actually it's the local team who did that. So they made a list of activities and communication channels that they already used and that or new things sometimes that they want to implement. And then they comment that and they do a plan. So here the plan is starting in March. So it has just started actually. And it's meant to go until September. So the bad thing about this plan is that we have the rainy season just in the middle. So we still need to be sure they can achieve the right thing at the right time. So yeah, I won't go into details here, but I will show you just the first step that has started. So you remember the others' approval or disapproval was a factor we needed to address. So the idea here was to promote the hygiene facilitators within the community. Because so the project had hygiene facilitators from the project, so or 4 people, I guess, paid by the project. But then they worked with a network of 2 community health workers in each village that are volunteer and that received basically a training and a coaching. And so people inside the community would be a reference for people looking for hygiene advice. And we found out with this survey that for users, hygiene promoters had much more influence and importance than the non-users. So the plan here was or is still to make a sort of ceremony to introduce more officially the hygiene facilitators in the villages. So here, that's the first step on March 10. It's a few days ago. So they gathered first in this area of Burkina Faso. You have local chiefs in each village. So you have, you see the people in the audience, they have nice hats. So this is the hat of a chief in Burkina Faso. And so the plan is to go through them and to ask for their help to introduce officially and to make a sort of official weight that the facilitator is a good person in the community and important person to listen to. And so the team here on the right, you see they are all on the edge of their chair. That's because they humble in front of the local kings, actually. Seem to be a bit shy there. Anyway, so they met the the local authorities from each village and explained what they wanted to do. And yeah, I had a few feedbacks on this activity, and the local chief generally had, or at least they say that they perform the right behavior themselves, and so they find no problem to promote this and promote hygiene facilitators. So that will be the next steps in this project. And of course, all different things will be done like it was shown in the planning, like household visits. And there's then for example, the memory aids. So they are working on a hand washing board that they can put in front of the latrine to remember how you wash hands properly and so on. So we have the chance, so to say, that with COVID, a lot of local resources have been developed to sensitize people and to make them aware of COVID-19. So we can make use of this as well in the project, not to reinvent everything every time. So
Okay.
This is just the example of the first step of this behavior change strategy.
Thank you, Michael. So you see, it's important, this step, to develop the interventions, the behavior change strategies, that is combining the channels and the techniques. And you have to be creative, and you have to include the local customs and the local culture. So this has to be done with a local NGO. So we can never develop a behavior change campaign without the local knowledge. I think this is important to understand.